Live, this is Saturday Agenda with David Lipson.
G'day, welcome to the program. This special edition of Saturday Agenda coming to you from the Sofitel in Melbourne, the venue of the Federal Liberal Council. Last night, the Federal Director Brian Loughnane, unofficially launched a campaign which no doubt will be long and fairly ugly, perhaps very aggressive. Here's some of what he had to say.
Planning has begun on the next federal election campaign, and in conjunction with our state directors will be our major priority in the coming 12 months. It would be easy for us to think that a weak and directionless Labor Party is unelectable. This is very dangerous. Labor and their allies are a formidable and well-resourced political machine.
Later today we're going to be hearing from the Prime Minister Tony Abbott, also the Deputy Prime Minister Julie Bishop and the Treasurer Joe Hockey. Joining me now, the Assistant Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. Thanks very much for your time today.
Nice to be with you.
We'll get to the Liberal Council in a moment. First, some important world issues I want to ask you about. The numerous terror attacks overseas in France, Tunisia, Kuwait as well. What's your understanding of these attacks? Are they coincidence or coordinated?
Well, they're clearly being perpetrated by people with an extremist ideology, and they're horrific attacks, as you say, in Tunisia and in France and also in Kuwait. And it comes on the back of other attacks we've seen in Brussels, in London, in Paris, and indeed a few years ago in New York. So no capital city is immune, David, and that is why Australia is taking very strong measures, both here at home but also abroad, to try to protect our interests and try to bring more security to the world.
Just on some of those measures, a report in The Australian today from Greg Sheridan that the government's looking not just at dual nationals when it comes to citizenship, but also suspending the rights of sole citizens who may return here if they've been fighting overseas. Can you shed any light on that?
Well, as you know, we put out a discussion paper on this issue, and the Prime Minister's been very consistent. It's not just been about dual nationals, it's been more broadly about stopping terrorism and about protecting Australians. So we'll do whatever is needed, we'll consult widely, but we'll look at a whole range of measures that could potentially improve our national security here at home.
On another matter overseas, a significant ruling by the US Supreme Court when it comes to gay marriage, which has declared same-sex marriage legal from coast to coast, all 50 states. Will that have any bearing on the Australian law or at the very least the Australian debate?
Oh, look, this is an important decision for the United States, but we are having our own debate here in Australia. Obviously, there are differing views. We've got our own internal processes, which we'll work through in a respectful way, but that's a decision for the United States. We'll do what's right for us here in Australia.
OK, let's turn to the Federal Liberal Council. The election isn't due for 15 months, but it seems the Liberal Party machine has very much kicked into gear, if last night's speeches are any indication. When can we expect the election?
Oh, look, the Prime Minister's made pretty clear our intention is to run our full term. That's what the Australian people elected us to do, and we've had an extremely good fortnight. The mood is buoyant here because we've just passed through the Senate some $14 billion worth of savings measures to repair the budget and pay back Labor's debt. We've got important measures through, whether it's around the indexation of fuel excise, changes to the pension, and we signed the free trade agreement with China, which will boost jobs and exports from Australia into the region. So we've got a lot of good news. Why we're succeeding now in government is because we did the hard work, David, in opposition. That's in real contrast to the Labor Party and Bill Shorten, who hasn't come up with any savings of his own, hasn't come up with any ideas in the so-called year of big ideas, and clearly is just beholden to the unions.
Yeah, we saw the first of what will no doubt be many attack ads over the next 15 months if it does go full term. Not just from the Liberals, I'm sure the Labor Party have a few up their sleeve as well. The line was Bill Shorten has too much baggage. Is that the tone that we can expect for the next 15 months? A very sort of aggressive and personal tone from both sides of politics?
Well, there's a real trust issue around Bill Shorten, and there's a dark shadow over his leadership, and you can see the ones behind him trying to manoeuvre to try to get an advantage because they can see that he is weakened. He hasn't advanced the policy agenda. He is beholden to special interests. He's had a few problems, as you know, in the media, and obviously he's got a lot of questions to answer when it comes to the Royal Commission. But we're focusing on the job of governing, and like I said, we've had a very good fortnight in Canberra, where the themes through this national conference around economic security and national security, they're the two pillars of the Abbott government, and we'll continue to prosecute that agenda.
Do Australians deserve more from their politicians, more vision rather than just attacks and going for the throat of the opposite number?
Well, certainly we have put forward a very strong plan to support hard-working Australians, and whether that's around sustainable budget management, whether that is linking Australia to the growth economies in the region, China, Japan, Korea, with the 3 free trade agreements, whether it's a record spend on infrastructure, whether it's the additional spending on schools and on health, whether it's what we're doing around deregulation, just cutting red tape, and of course the budget and how well that has been received with a big boost, David, to consumer confidence and business confidence, with the focus on small business and of course families and workforce participation. So we're very pleased with where we're at right now. We've got a lot of work to do, and over the next year and a bit before the next election, we'll produce better results for the Australian people.
In your policy space, you want superannuation boards to be at least 1/3 made up of independent directors, also with an independent chair. These funds were already performing pretty well. Convince me that this is needed and this is not just a political assault on the unions.
Well, firstly, superannuation is absolutely critical. There's some $2 trillion worth of funds under management. It's growing to $9 trillion. So it's only right, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a nurse, with your hard-earned savings in superannuation, that you have the best people on the boards. And the best experience and expertise at board level can come from independent directors. Now, this is the recommendation of 2 important reviews. One was the Cooper Review in 2010 to the then Labor government, which recommended that they have at least 1/3 of the directors being independent. And then we've had David Murray's review to the Abbott government at the end of last year, which recommended a majority of directors be independent. So you've got 2 key reviews recommending that this happens. As well, the APRA, which is the key independent prudential regulator, has said that decision-making is enhanced by having more independent directors. Now, the Labor Party's isolated on this, and it will be interesting to see where they go, because the key consumer advocacy group, Choice, National Seniors, one of the peak industry bodies for superannuation, ASFA, the Small Business Association, COSBOA, the Business Council of Australia, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, have all come out very strongly and welcomed the government's initiative here. So this will be a real test for Labor. Will they be making a decision just based on the narrow sectoral interests that they represent with the unions, or will they be thinking about the long-term interests of the millions of Australians with superannuation?
Just very briefly, do you think you have the numbers without Labor to get this through?
Well, let's see what Labor does, but I've had very constructive discussions, David, with the crossbenchers. They understand why we are doing it. They're very open to change, and hopefully when this legislation is brought before the Parliament, it will get the necessary support.
Assistant Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
So the Liberal Federal Council